We are now live.
Okay, I'll go ahead and call the Risk Management Insurance Committee to order, and A is the monthly legal update.
Move to go into executive session for a legal update.
Second.
Okay, so we're in executive session.
I want to know.
Thank you, Angel.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and call Risk Management Insurance Committee back to order. I'd just like to share that I'm the chair. Also on that committee is Ms. Karen Boudreau and Mr. Ray Gregson. And next item is B, which is the flood insurance renewal. And I'll turn it over to Ms. Gray and to Mr. Nolan Luke from Riverlands or Elation, or we both, or?
We started in
okay.
relation to Fairway.
All right.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Thank you for allowing us to be here. So our first item that we have up today is our flood insurance renewal. I do have Mr. Nolan Luke here, who is here from Riverlands Insurance and Relation Insurance to explain our renewal. So he'll go over the different policies that we have, and he'll also discuss some information from the parish. Mr. Luke?
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your bills to start off with. Second of all, just kind of give you a rundown where we have 95 policies that's in force right now. It's broken down, and we got 57 on the West Bank, and we got 38 policies on the East Bank. That together gives us our 95 policies. We got a 10% rate increase overall, and if you ask me a little bit about what I thought about the renewal, and I'm telling you, it was probably the most frustrating renewal that we had. Why? Because our parish officials did everything possible, all right, from lawsuits to everything that's going on officially. I'm telling you that the people that we elected are doing a great job, all right? Why it's so frustrating? Last year, over a year ago, we got our community rating from a 7 to a 6. Over a year. The effective date of the discount, October 1st. It took them over a year just to say it was approved, we got it done, and a year and a little few months later, they said, okay, but it's not going to be effective for October 1st. That means 73 policies that you have did not get a discount. 22 policies will, because after October 1st, the 5% community number gets it, right? So the whole East Bank next year, everyone's going to get a decrease in policy. Why? Because if you look at the breakdown of your policies, everybody on the East Bank pretty much stayed flat. So after October 1st, then you don't get it midterm, meaning that you're going to have to wait to renewal of your September renewals next year before we get it. I'm actually on the committee for the St. Charles Parish Floodplain Management Plan. We already started to apply to get our community rating from a 6 to a 5. We have all the infrastructure in place. When I'm saying that, to get to 5, meaning the pumps and stuff like that, we just got to go back and document all our stuff. And we should be applying to get it from a 6 to a 5, probably by the end of this year, no later than the first quarter of next year. Very frustrating, very frustrating. The reason behind that, besides over a year ago, we got the approval to go from a 7 to a 6. Almost 3 years ago, we got our levee systems in the back on the West Bank to be noticed that we got some kind of levee protection. 3 years ago. As of today, we still got 0 discounts on that. So what's happening is that our parish officials, through lawsuits and good work and spending money where we're doing protection, we get everything that we need for final approval, and it sits on the desk, and nothing gets done. It is frustrating for our people of our parish. It's frustrating for the businesses of our parish, because our elected officials is doing an amazing job of getting us in the right position. Now we have to get, Congress and FEMA to be on the same page to give us the credits that we are getting. One of the questions that was asked, is the rate increases due to, last few years we've been having a few claims, right? And is some of the rate increases due to the claims we had? Zero, right? That we are not getting punished for having a few claims. It's strictly the levy protection that's killing the West Bank right now, all right?
There's been nothing new on the risk rating 2.0. I know.
Well, they are got right now, and we even got government working on our side. We got Bill Cassidy and Kennedy, okay? They putting out a bill that's HR 5484. What that bill's doing is that right now the government has what is called a sliding scale, right? So we might have a building that's you're paying $4,000 today, but the actual price might be $8,000 or $10,000. When it gets all the way to its actuary sound number, there's a sliding scale of 18% is the max they can do per year until they get to that number. This bill of 5484, what they're trying to do is take that sliding scale and move it from an 18% to a 9%, okay? So it cut the rate increases in half, and that would give us time for hopefully to get the rates for the levy refreshed, get everything documented. It just extends the time till it gets the actuary sound numbers. So that's the biggest thing right now that Congress is trying to help us with, is actually they're trying to change that sliding scale from an 8 to a 9. What's bad about it, we had 117 claims in St. Charles Parish reported in the end of July. Almost 80% of them was on East Bank. Okay? So it's, Narco had some, St. Rose had some, Destra had it, and then we had very few on the West Bank. And West Bank right now is, the residents of West Bank is getting killed, right? And, but we have the levy systems. They're getting ready to get another recap on top to even make it better. But until the, how can we say that, President and FEMA get on the same page, because they have to, Congress got to give FEMA the okay to get it refreshed. And right now, they don't even want FEMA no more, right? So when is that going to happen for us? I don't know, okay? But our parish, can do a few things itself and take it in their own hands, and they are doing it. Community number from a 7 to a 6, 5% discount. They wait over a year to give us the discount. And now the parish right now is working from a 6 to a 5, will give us another 5% discount. But is that 2 years from now, 3 years from, I don't know. But overall, I think Congress, our officials, they work on the same page to help the residents of St. Charles Parish.
And if you'll notice, the way that the agenda item reads, it says approximately what the cost, because as Mr. Luke stated, some of our policies renew right now, some renew in the future. So we like to bring them all right now so that we don't have to bring it every month. And then when we receive the official cost, we'll know what is being assessed for that property, but they don't tell us that ahead of time.
And the 10%, little 10.2% was, we did make some changes to the policy. We had to up some coverage to 7 policies. That included that, the increase in some coverage. But overall, you can say it was a 10% rate increase.
Are there any additional?
I can say one more thing I just wanted to go over, is that, we having some claims that's the same schools, right? So what I wanted to check into is the repetitive loss program to make sure that do we have any schools that's in that program. That means if you have 2 losses in a rolling 10-year period, and the claims are 25% or higher of the worth of the building, it can go into repetitive claims, and right now, we're in good shape on that, okay? Because, I mean, I checked into Norco, in 24, we paid, just say 300,000, but that's not even close to 25% of the properties. So I'm not worried about the repetitive loss right now. Okay?
Just for a future, that point, last point you made, do we check that before we file another one? I know the one in June was kind of small, but just,
Well, right now, Ray, is a situation that really, you know, in y'all situation, y'all buildings cost so much money, the big one, then there's a flooding, that really, you don't even have one on the radar yet.
gotcha.
Yeah, so we can check into it, but it gotta be 25% of the building's worth, and we okay.
Yeah, and if
Because we
you
did the revaluation, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and that helps.
Right,
That helps.
yeah, sorry.
recall, the Norco situation really wasn't a direct result of the property itself. It was more something that occurred along the river. So, in the other flood, I believe was Luling, we've had one flood account, but they haven't been, like Mr. Nolan said, the value of those claims have not been significant.
Is that the only two schools that's had flood claims? Norco and Luling?
Within the recent times, those are the only ones that we've had to file NFIP claims for. Yes, sir.
Norco,
had some
we've
smaller issues.
We've had two at Norco?
Yes, sir.
And
But
one in
those,
Luling?
as Mr. Luke stated, they did not raise to a high number. The highest one we had was the one that was 300,000.
I'd also like to add, I mean, we all know, because we all have homes ourselves, but flood is not something that's dictated by the insurance company. That is a federal government policy. In other words, so there's no fluctuation, it is whatever the federal government says it is, it is. There's, you can't shop it around, I guess what I'm trying to say.
That's why I think it's so frustrating, because, it lands on your officials to do certain things for people of St. Charles Parish, and they did everything, right? They did everything, and we can't get the benefit because of the, yeah, pretty much. I didn't want to say that, but thank you for saying it, right? Right. So.
Are there
Anybody else?
any additional questions for Mr. Luke?
Well, this would go to the board table on Wednesday. Thank you, Mr. Luke.
All right, I appreciate y'all. Thank you.
Okay, next is C, which is Medicare Advantage Plan Design Options. We have Ms. Gray with us. The Insurance Committee met on Thursday, and the entire committee was there, along with Mr. Alexander and Ms. Weber were also in attendance, but USI was with us, and we discussed different Medicare plans and redesigns and so forth. And anyway, we came up with a recommendation that we would share with the entire board, but beforehand, we just turn it over to Ms. Gray and Mr. Babin and let them do their spiel, and then we'll go from there.
I just wanted to give a recap, as Mr. Oakland stated, that the Risk Management Insurance Committee conducted an extensive review of 9 Medicare Advantage plan design options, including the financial impact to the district and the potential impact on our retirees. After that discussion, the committee recommends option C, which is in a box in red on the attachment, because it provides needed cost savings and financial protection for the district while causing the least disruption to our retirees. Option C makes limited changes to the medical benefits, but does not change the pharmacy benefits. The estimated annual cost is approximately $2.85 million, representing about a 7.08% increase over the current costs. Because the board has received and discussed those detailed plan comparisons, the recommendation is to go with option C so that we can do as stated previously. So if Mr. Babin has anything else to add, or if the board has any additional questions about those discussions or the attachments that's in your agenda item.
Now, I'd just like to note that there's no change whatsoever to the pharmacy part, which if y'all remember right, the last board meeting, we voted to decouple the pharmacy from the medical part, which was a cost saving to the district, and now it's going to be Humana, our carrier, was going to handle all that. The other thing, there's no change to the pharmacy, which some of the members of the committee thought was a great thing for our retirees who are on fixed incomes, that most of their medical costs are probably pharmaceutical, and therefore, if there was no change to it, there would be no change to, but we felt a small increase to the co-pays and the deductible to the medical part, to the Part B part of the Medicare part, would be the littlest impact and, to our subscribers. So I just wanted to share that.
I was going to say exactly what you said, but about the prescriptions, you hit the nail on the head. And Ms. Gray just touched on it too, that this is not a savings. If we don't make any changes, it's 13.31% increase, whereas this would be a 7.08%. We felt, to piggyback on what you said, was a small incremental change rather than something potentially next year just having to be something drastic. And if you look at the next page on page 3, really the prescription part, if you look at the savings, it was negligible compared to this, whereas I think from a cash flow standpoint, for a retiree would be better off not impacting them on the prescription side. So thanks for your thoughts. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions about this agenda item?
And there's no changes to the, how do I say it, to the benefits? Is that the right term?
Yes, sir. So the plan itself is remaining the same. So members will not lose coverage, any forms of coverage. This is only adding some co-pays and adding a deductible to the plan. So they still will be able to receive all of the services that they're currently receiving under the plan.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, we'll bring this to the board table on Wednesday night. And Ms. Boudreau, that's the end of our committee.
Mike was already on. I thought he was going to take it, but move to adjourn.
Insurance stands adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
I call the Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Committee meeting to order. And we have one item on the agenda, and that's the annual 2026-2027 pupil progression plan revisions. And to the table, we have Ms. Bavin and also Dr. Z. So I'll turn it over to you.
All right, good evening, everyone. So this is the annual review of the pupil progression plan. If you guys remember this from previous years, this is something that governs the district policies around promotion and retention of our students. It must be approved by the board annually. And prior to being presented to you this evening, these changes were reviewed by committees of parents and also committees of our educators. Just some brief highlights on the changes that are being proposed here. First, as they pertain to summer remediation programs, we are working to bring this policy into alignment with current state requirements around summer remediation and updating some of the language there. Also adding some required language about career coaching in middle school, and also updating the language to provide clarity around how certain exams can be used in awarding high school credits to transfer students. So it's an overview of the changes. If there are any questions.
I do. I have a question. Looking at the PPP number on page 14, explain to me what we mean by career coaching. I know we do career fairs. I know that. I know we have them at the high school. They do a joint one at the Dufresne Center, which is amazing. Is that what we talk about when we say career coaching?
Yeah, good question. So this was a new section that was put in place by the state. They were asking us to fill this out. But basically, what we do in middle school, we provide certain career experiences that count as career coaching within middle school. So this is going to result in nothing necessarily different than what we are already doing, but provides that. And then, I know the section also speaks to the development of individual graduation plans. So it kind of starts students on that high school journey while still in middle school. So it just kind of fleshes out some of those details.
Now, I notice it says, in the original document, it had individual growth plans, which I think is the end of the eighth grade year, is this something that growth plan gets started with sixth grade? Or it starts in eighth grade and then it continues with high school?
It's going to start it's a graduation plan, so it'll start
Okay.
as students transition to high school in eighth grade. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
One
Zinn.
of the concerns that parents had with respect to career coaching was that we are not directing children into specific careers. And that's been a concern that parents have had for some time. What cautions have we put in place to be sure that we are not directing children into specific areas?
Yeah, you can.
So part of that would be through the career exploration, just kind of seeing what interests do they have, connecting it to the surveys that they take as far as their interest through our SEL curriculum, and then saying these are things that, based on your interest, might be a career path for you, but it's not locking them into anything in particular. So it's just kind of taking their interest and giving a framework around that, but it's not locking them into a certain pathway at all.
At what stage is that done?
That is more of something that they do through the high school as they're continuing with determining whether they're on the university pathway or are they on the TOPS Tech side. What are their interests in career exploration through the courses that they're selecting?
Another concern that has been with regard to this is that new careers are being put on the table in record pace right now. What are we doing in this regard to make sure that we expose children, or at least give them information about all of the new careers that are in place or that are coming up as a result of new technology and all this sort of thing?
I think that's a really good point. We want to make sure that we're playing to their strengths, but not locking them into careers that'll be antiquated by the time their IGPs they develop in eighth grade will be outdated possibly by the time they're seniors. So thinking of what are the strengths that they bring to the table, but then making sure that we're exposing them. So in fifth grade, we do a field trip to the Satellite Center so that the students see what opportunities we have that are related to business and industry in our area. Same thing in the middle school, that they do some of those trips, and that we are constantly working with business and industry just to make sure that we're staying on the cutting edge of what is relevant and what are those skills that we want to make sure are transferable to our community.
Now, somebody once said that the Dictionary of Occupational Standards has started out like this, and now it's twice as large as it was. So new careers and the careers that are taken off the table now, people who were in those jobs are no longer in those jobs, the job no longer exists, and people who have been trained and have worked in those capacities for a number of years find themselves in a position where they are unemployed, and the skills that they have does not allow them to be able to get into some of the new careers that are out there. So as we move along through this, those are some things that we probably need to continue to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Point well taken.
And not only that, because, I think of the aviation that we now have, which is truly, I hear nothing but amazing things. But also, I think we need to do more as the automotive and refrigeration and those courses, because, those things will always be around. And in fact, I was on an airline on the East Bank, and I saw 2 mechanics needed, and we were looking for a mechanic not too long ago. So I feel like, not now, but years to come, that is something that we might want to explore as well, because, we have kids who truly would probably enjoy those pathways too, unless we give them the opportunity, because I do see that we give them so much, but I feel like we can offer so much more. So just in the future.
It's going to be the fallback plan, because every kid today wants to be an influencer, and then if that doesn't work, then you fall back on that.
Yeah, that's my goal.
Got it.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Well, just as a follow-up, because I do think it warrants more discussion for us, because we did used to have, if you recall, Naviance at our middle schools, which was a software that all the students would use to explore career explorations. And while we do have some things in place relative to the Satellite Center and our STEAM labs that are now transitioned from computer labs to STEAM labs, which provides opportunities, most of the courses we provide at our high schools are aligned to high-wage, high-value type jobs, at the same time looking at career interests. So perhaps we can come, I'm looking at Dr. Scheck-Snyder and Ms. Babin, provide more information on exactly what is being done at the middle schools with more specificity. Because I do know our counselors are required to fill out the IGPs starting in 8th grade. So I would be interested, and I think the board would as well, based on tonight's discussion, a more specific outline of what we do relative to middle school going into high school.
And I do, this is my last comment.
I'm gonna just hold mine.
I do want to say kudos to New Sarpy last year, because they did a career day. And the kids, and you wouldn't think little kids would have enjoyed those presentations, but they were very much engaged. And they offered a lot of different things. So, and these are things that are within our community. So I do feel starting that as young as that really gives them the opportunity to think out the box as they move on each of their grade levels. So that's something we might want to talk about as well.
I do know that most of our elementary schools do some sort of career fair, but I can't say for certain that each does.
Well, New
So
Sarpy
that's a
did
good,
an
good
excellent
follow-up.
job.
To piggyback on Dr. Ortland's statement about one of the concerns that has been discussed over and over is because of the vast amount of knowledge that is out there because of new developments and new technology and this sort of thing. There's got to be a relationship between curriculum and instruction and career opportunities and so forth. In the 12 years that children spend in school, we've got to focus on more skills development and training children to perform and be able to do and perform those skills that are required across the employment spectrum. Not so much being specific, but this cross-training. And we find that there's got to be another relationship between business and industry because they require certain skills and what have you. And business and industry spend a lot of time once they find that the child has the specific skills for entry level, then they provide the specific kinds of training. So there's got to be a relationship. So as we move along and develop these new programs and what have you, and I know we're doing a lot here in St. Charles Parish, but I'm just pointing out that there's got to be this relationship between curriculum and instruction, business and industry, and all of these sort of things.
If I could add, so I know Mr. Ronnie Seal has this data, and he gets it updated from Geno Inc. I'd say at least once, twice a year. So what they do is they pull the top sectors, right? And they pull it based on the jobs that have been, it's a combination, I forget the name of the software, they scrape the web and gives everything over the last year. And the sectors that you see in rural parishes versus what you might see potentially in Ascension Parish, like Ascension might have a little bit more retail than what we have in the 3 parishes. And it makes sense if you look at the makeup of the parish because they've got some more retail. But to your skills point, I actually have it written down right here, and you mentioned mechanic, so those two are aligned. If you give you an example, and I believe it's industrial maintenance, because we had this conversation with Caterpillar, Louisiana Cat, that's next door to Satellite Center, when we did a groundbreaking there a year and a half, 2 years ago. The conversation was the industrial maintenance, and because they need a mechanic, right? The next day, they actually went and visited over there at the Satellite Center, I think you recall. So the skill set is those things that cross over, whether it's electrician, whether it's HVAC or those things. But it's because you're not driven to one, and that's why you'll see employees, if there's not enough room to grow maybe at one facility on the river, but an opportunity opens up over here, and I'm sorry, you know this, like you'll jump to another because you got the skill set and the training. And so I think it does bode well. But there's other things outside of just what our industry is, and you're seeing that a lot of those newer things come up because they need the workforce.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you so much.
Before we adjourn, I'd just like to note that the Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Committee will be meeting next Wednesday. That is August 26th at 2 p.m. and to cover 3 or 4 other topics that we're going to bring back to the board in September. So you're all invited to attend that meeting. And again, that's Wednesday, August 26th at 2 p.m. here. And we'll have 3 or 4 topics on the agenda for that meeting. Entertain a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Unless there's an objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
The Personnel and Policy Committee will come to order. The committee members are myself, Mrs. Weber, and Mr. Smith. We have several items on the agenda tonight. We have Ms. Teresa Brown, Mr. Eric Truding, and Mrs. Angel Babin to steer us through this agenda. First item is job description revisions.
Thank you, Mr. Alexander. Good evening, everyone. So there's a few of us here at the table so we can talk about job descriptions. I just want to let you know that these job descriptions that are being presented before you today are due to operational needs and role clarity. None of these job descriptions will result in any additional funding needed. This is just to make sure that the practices and the expectations of the job match the job description. So it's just operational effectiveness. So at this time, I will turn it over to Ms. Babin. She can start with hers, and then Mr. Truding will share the one on SPED.
So the 2 items that I have in here for job description revisions, one is for the gifted and talented arts instructional facilitator, and one is for the coordinator of the arts. So where these were revisited a few years ago, there just became a need for more delineation of the specific duties that each was performing when it comes to overall arts programming versus the special education side for the instructional facilitator, and really focusing on IEP aspects to make sure that there was a clear focus on the separation of those. So that just aligns with the revisions there. We also reordered that as we have been revisiting job descriptions over the past couple months, making sure that we were bringing all of those structures into alignment. So for leadership positions in the district, that all of those components were, anything was updated. So that's where those 2 came from.
Is this a 183-day or 200-day? Or
I want to say one is the coordinator of the arts is 240 for sure, and I believe the instructional facilitator is 183.
In regards to the revision to the recommendation provision, rather, for the special education paraeducator, basically those revisions, historically, we've had one paraeducator job description. And the paraeducator expectations for someone that works in special ed is obviously different than, say, an enrichment para and so forth. But historically, we had a one-size-fit-all under the physical restrictions or physical expectations. They had some additional things for a catch-all, excuse me, for the special education paraeducator. The revisions that we're recommending basically just align the expectations with the position.
I need to comment on that. I have to compliment you because as a former administrator, it was difficult when you had, because a special education para is totally different from, like you said, that enrichment para. One of the things that I was looking at, if you go to the work environment, it says, and I love how y'all really wrote that out. You put 20% sitting, 30% walking, and 50% standing. And I think the clearer that we get, it will give us administrators a clearer, like who can I need to hire? Because if you cannot do that, then we know, okay, this is not someone I need to hire for this job. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate separating this from the other paraeducator positions. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding job description revisions? All right, thank you.
Move on to the next item, personnel items, and
All right.
look like we have any.
All right, personnel items. You have the attached document there. This is our standard item. You have any questions this evening that I can answer? Thank you for that question. Yes, we do have an opening that we are interviewing for our payroll manager. And I'm sorry, did somebody say something? Okay, our payroll manager, and we have some lunch monitors, some K monitors that we're still, but those are usually, those are our part-time workers. We have filled, I think, all of our SPED at this moment, which is beautiful. And I cannot think of any at this moment, but I will verify, and if there's an update to that, I will let you know. But we are in a really good position where we are right now, so we're just trying to wrap up that. And you saw that probably in our staffing. There was no staffing update this past week because we really are at a solid point and welcoming our pre-K babies in this week and ready to roll. Thank you for your question, Mr. Suffren.
Have we thought about just considering 2026, the monitors, lunch monitors, but the multiple monitors, in using AM, PM, or not permanent employees, I guess?
So that's a great question, Mr. Gregson. Our lunch monitors actually are, some of them they hire directly at the school, but some of them they hire through AM/PM. So AM/PM does handle our our kindergarten monitors and our lunch monitors. ESS handles our paras and the classroom teacher, but AM/PM handles kindergarten monitors and the lunch monitors, and they are trying to get it going. It's a 3.5 hour position, and so sometimes it is it can be hard to fill at times, and so they're just trying to get us fully staffed at the school.
I meant temp workers. I couldn't think of the term. That's why I said AM/PM. But
Yep, and
yeah,
we do
I don't know
hire
who we use.
part-time in the district, and we hire through AM/PM. Sometimes the part-times, they have someone that can fill that spot, and then sometimes we go AM/PM. We're just trying to keep those positions staffed.
Wait, I gotta get there. Next, we're done with personnel. Next item is revisions to board policy and procedures, 5.08.02, test security for first reading.
All right. Hello again.
So for this one, we wanted to update our test security policy to align with Bulletin 118. It had been a little bit of time since this had last been revisited, even to the point that some of our testing platforms were not inclusive in this policy of being online for our testing, as well as making sure that we included our third-party vendors. So we reflected that in the policy. The procedure then spells it out in greater detail. So when we talk about our third-party vendors, some of those are state assessments that are required, including AP, work keys, DE, any of those where we want to make sure that this is inclusive in the policy, as well as places where it was absent regarding test security with online and computer-based testing. So this was in some ways some antiquated language that we just needed to make sure was brought up to speed of what to do during an emergency on computer-based testing and how to secure student login information. So this policy and procedure would be reflective of bringing that up to speed in alignment with Bulletin 118. Okay, any questions?
Questions? Move to the next item.
Thank you.
Policy and procedure 6.06.10, human trafficking for a first reading.
Do you need your whole email? I think it's E. Alexander. Mine's R. Gregson.
Good evening, thank you. The first policy we have is human trafficking, 6.0610. We're here to ask the board to approve the first reading for the human trafficking policy. This was from the regular session 2026 legislation from the Act 737 that came into law. We're asking for a new board policy and procedure to, on the first reading, be approved.
Questions? Okay, you will see this again Wednesday night.
Thank you,
Next
sir.
item, revisions to policy 3.08, .02B and procedure 3.08.02B-PR1, visitors to school buildings and grounds. First reading.
Thank you again. This is to approve those revisions to our school board policy as currently written. Part of the revision is from the Act 944, which is the behavioral health service providers coming onto campus, and the way we had our visitor descriptions written, we needed to be more clear about how we stated that and what that meant versus parent requested or school requested visitors. We made those revisions for you in your review. This is the first reading, and we're asking to approve those revisions to the school grounds. I did work in coordination with Mr. Cade Rogers for safety and security and made sure that we align those policies as accurately as possible.
Are there any questions? No, we moving right along. Revisions to policy 4.07.05, personnel leave for first reading.
Good afternoon. As we are making recommendations based on a new law that was passed by the Louisiana legislature this past legislative session. This amends revised statute 17-1208. A point of clarification is that we're not requesting any additional days to be allocated. Basically, what the recommendations will be, is based on the law. The law says every teacher employed by a parish or city should be allowed, now be granted 4 days of personal leave, except for those that have annual leave. In other words, except for those that are 12-month employees like myself. Excuse me. So what we're recommending is that, 180-day, 183-day will maintain the 10 days, 200, 210, 220 remain the 11 allocated days, but now 4 of those days could be used as personal days from the allotment of days that are issued.
And when you say personal days, that means a person can take a day off with
Yeah.
no excuse, no reason?
Correct, yes, sir. So basically, the way I like to explain it, it's like if you will, a vacation day. You do have to request it at least 24 hours in advance to your supervisor. You don't have to give a reason for that reason why you're going to be absent. So I see a lot of times that teachers may have a wedding to go to out of town, so they'll take the Friday off, or maybe they're extending a vacation, they're taking a long, we have a week off for Mardi Gras, maybe they're taking a day off the day before or after. That's what typically is doing. I can say that, and I don't want to misspeak here, but I think it's happening already. It's just maybe some people aren't being forthright and they're saying they're sick as opposed to taking personal time.
Okay, and this new law would allow us to change our procedure from up to 3 days to 4 days.
That is correct. It's required for teachers. What we're recommending is anybody that is not a 12-month employee would still get the 4 days as opposed to, because the way that the law is written, only teachers get 4 days, everybody else would stay at 3.
Okay, and Mr. Truding, I asked you for some information
Yes.
earlier today. You want to share that with
Yes,
us?
sir. I do appreciate you giving me that request. I am working with ESS because some of that data is based on substitutes and they're managing that data. I will have that for you by tomorrow morning at the latest. I'll shoot it out to all the board members.
Okay, and for everybody's information, I asked Mr. Truding about how much this would cost the district to cover the cost of people taking these days off in situations where we have to hire somebody to cover for them. How much more it would cover the district from 3 days of this to 4 days of this. Thank you, Mr. Truding.
You're welcome.
You described with the teacher wanting to go out of town for a wedding and leaving on Friday. In the past, that would have been charged to medical leave.
Oftentimes, so I can tell you, and I have had to do several investigations where people said they were sick, where there was evidence to show otherwise. So again, I think it's something that happens very frequently, and this allows people to be honest with how they're claiming it. This is just my opinion.
Let's go back to a little history here and some cautions with regard to this. First of all, here in the St. Charles Parish, we were one of the few districts in the state of Louisiana that allowed teachers to take 3 days unexplained because the law gives them 10 days, sick days, and those days ought to be used as sick days. We say you've got 10 days, but you must be sick when you use them, and you need to verify that. Many districts across the state did not have that in place. Unions across the state tried to bargain that with school districts who had collective bargaining and have not been able to get that in place. So they've gone to the legislature and got a legislator to introduce that, and the legislature did not approve this as a state law. They said, we will put that back on the districts and give the districts the opportunity to approve that as a part of the district's policy. It costs money. So let's not look at this as it doesn't. We give 3 days already. You have to multiply the cost of a teacher's salary for 1 day times the number of teachers. If you tell people you have a day that you can take, they're going to take it, even if only 75% of them took that day. The second piece there is every time a teacher decides to take that day, then you have to have a substitute teacher to cover for that teacher. So you get hit budget-wise twice. And once you put this in place, it becomes a recurring cost to the district. My recommendation to the board is we have led the state by giving our teachers 3 days simply because the legislature decides, and the new law says, it doesn't say you have to go with 4 days. It says you may go from up to 4. So I see no reason for this board to have to implement that because there is a cost to the district, and keep in mind, we're doing some things in our, and we're gonna be coming to an item in a minute that we're gonna be asking for money. We asked for money to deal with some issues already. I don't see this board wanting to implement this. We have no reason to. Our benefit package for our teachers is an excellent benefit package. Just a little earlier today, we talked about insurance, which is a big driver of our budget. And we cover, and there have been debate among board members about us covering too much. But our benefit package is a benefit package that I believe, and once you start getting into things that, one of the reasons we have been able to keep unions out of St. Charles Parish is that we have been ahead of the curve. And now the union is trying to backdoor this, and I just don't think that it has any benefit at all to the district.
Go ahead, Ray.
Can I ask, and if you don't have it, that's fine, but I have it pulled up, and I'm, for the benefit of the board's clarification, and I'm reading it, shall be entitled to and shall be allowed to use up to 4 days absences. So what, this, if I mean, basically they got 4 days whether our policy says it or not. Is that, I mean, am I?
That is, yes, sir, that is correct.
Okay.
So we have to provide them to be able to use for 4 days.
Yeah, that's what I understood it. I don't know if we have a choice. I don't know if we have a choice
According to what I understand with the law, it's not mandatory that you go to 4. It says up to 4.
Yes, sir, but the language, the way it reads is they shall be entitled to it. So the first part that comes up is shall be entitled to and shall be allowed to use up to 4 days. So we have to be able to provide them the opportunity to use up to 4 days.
And Mr. Smith, to your point, it may have been that way when the bill was originally written, but as passed and finalized, it does have the shall use up to 4 days.
Some language added.
Sure, and that's, but I think the key language there is shall allow up to. I think that's the key piece there, up to. It doesn't say shall allow for.
Up to 4 of their
It
10.
says up to, and I think
sick
that's
days,
I
right?
think that's the piece. And because I believe that's the piece, I believe that, I would want to request an Attorney General's opinion on this as well. Because I just don't believe that up to, it mandates that we have to give 4.
So the reason why they put the language and it says up to, and it doesn't say that you have to give 4, because an employee, when they put in to use sick time, they don't, so if they go on the front line, let's just use St. Charles Parish Schools as an example. If they go in the front line and put in their sick time, they don't have to use the personal days. They can use, if it's 7 sick days, they can say, I'm out for 7 sick days. They don't have to designate between personal or sick. But let's say that they do have something personal going on, they can use up to 4 to say it's personal without having that doctor's note, as Mr. Truding said. So that's why it's phrased in such a way to say up to, because they don't have to use the personal time, they can use it as just sick time. So that's why that language had to be afforded that way, because they have to be able to have the opportunity to say whether it's just sick time or if they're using personal time. So that's why it's the up to.
Well, I guess maybe the reason I would want to see us investigate this further before acting on this is because I do believe there's ambiguity as it relates to this issue. And it is a cost item to the board. That we're already been hit by the state, who has mandated that you take your MFP, and which is a cost to the district. And here again, you're getting smacked in the face again by saying, okay, now take some more money and give it away. And I just don't believe that because of the ambiguity as it relates to the interpretation of this particular issue, that we need to abide by this. I would want to request an Attorney General's opinion before doing that. So my request to the board with respect to this is that we get that opinion.
Couldn't we ask one of our lawyers? Darrenisha? She gave
We've
us,
asked her.
right, she gave clarification. So I am understanding, like Ms. Gray, that you have to do the 4 days. So, if there's confusion among the board, then maybe you might need to do that. I'm under understanding and impression that it is 4 days. So, I don't know. I read the law, I saw the law, but if other board members are having confusion about it, then, but I'm under the impression it's 4 days, and that's what we need to honor.
Go ahead, Ms. Norton.
I was gonna ask, so I thought we were following the law allowing the 4 days. I thought what was being asked is to make the policy uniform for all other employees. And I thought that's what we were talking about. But I just need to ask this question. So paras and so forth, when they're out, do we replace them with a sub, or that para, we do? Okay.
It's a cost item.
Mr. Oakland, just as a point of clarification, we do generally do a so if a teacher's out, we're going to request a sub. If a para's out, usually we will request a sub, but sometimes they can maximize the human resources on that campus before they would actually place a para. And it just depends. It's on a case-by-case basis. It's not a one-for-one every single time. But when it's safety and supervision, 100%, that's what we'll do. So I just want to make sure.
And see, and I guess maybe that's the crux of the whole matter, and that's why I feel so strongly about this. If the board agrees to add an additional day to allow a teacher to be out, it will cost the district, whether all teachers use it or not. You have to budget it. It has to be in your budget. Because if all teachers decide to use it, then the money has to be there. In addition to that, you also have to budget for the substitute for every teacher, not just one. Even if your experience in the district shows that only 40% of the teachers in the district have used their 3 days that we've given them, you still have to budget for 100%. And that's why I feel so strongly about this, because we are now in a fiscal crisis in this district, and we're doing as much as we can to try and correct some things already.
And Mr. Smith, I'm sorry, Ms. Ellen.
Go ahead, then I'll wrap this up.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to provide a point of clarification. So the bank of days that the teachers have are not changing. What's changing is how they can allocate those days. So they are not being added days. So if, for example, they only have 7 days, it's just saying you can classify 4 as personal and 3 as sick or 7 as sick. It's just changing the allocation of how they can classify the days in frontline. They are not being given any additional days.
Right now, the policy that we have in place, and we've led the state, we've given teachers 3 days to do the very same thing that other districts were not doing. Those districts, many of those districts have unions. I was chief negotiator for the New Orleans Public School for a number of years, and this is not a new issue. And unions have gone to legislators and supported them. They supported them, they give them money for their campaigns, and they've asked them to put certain laws in place. And those laws affect public education. So that the way around districts like ours and other districts is to go to the legislature. But the legislature was cautious here. The legislature said, we already mandate that you take your MFP and do something with. We're not going to do this. We're going to give this back to the states, not the states, I'm sorry, to the local school district, and let the local districts do it. Now, those districts that don't have that in place, then those districts will have to do something. But we've been doing this for 30 years. Now they want to tell us to add another day?
So,
And you're adding another day to the bank of days that you do not have to ask for. And when you do that, you are telling people, okay, take it. Now, there are some people who, will not take it, and I understand that, but you got to budget for them. And when you budget for them, it increases your budget.
so when you don't take these days, they have 10, they accumulate and they roll over. So say, for example, a teacher doesn't miss school for 18 years, and they accumulated 180 days, that's a whole year that counts. So if that year counts towards retirement and everything else, is that money already being budgeted? Or is it, so the money is being budgeted prior to the 10 days are budgeted already?
I think it's in our liabilities in our budget, if I'm not mistaken. Don't want to put him on the spot, but I'm pretty sure I've seen that.
I do understand Mr. Smith's point relative to the 3 becoming 4 personal, because generally speaking, yeah, people do feel as though they're more apt to use personal days because they don't have to provide an excuse, right? However, we do know of employees that have abused medical days, right, that go out for different reasons, and they say it's medical, just like Mr. Truding had alluded to before. What we can do, okay, because what I'm hearing is just some discussion around this where some feel as though we don't need to, we can seek an opinion. I'm not sure if it's the Attorney General or the Legislator's Auditor's Office. I'm not sure who we could get a more appropriate interpretation of that particular piece and bring that back to the board. However, in order to do that, as a board on Wednesday, you'd have to say to remove this particular agenda item if that's the pleasure of the board. If not, we do have 2 readings, so it could be approved temporarily, like if the board so chooses on Wednesday, that it gets passed as is with a direction for administration to seek further legal counsel in regards to interpretation of this particular law.
My only point with that is if you go through the process of the first reading, then you have told people that this is the policy, and then we're looking for a reason not to do it. I would rather, let's just table the item and get an opinion. And I hate to disagree with our in-house attorney on this, but it's not a disagreement. it is seeking the opinion from the state attorney who would have to defend that or prosecute it. That's what you're doing. They would either have to defend us or prosecute us. So let's get an opinion from them. And if the Attorney General says this is the way it is, then I'll have to go along with it.
Can you share your rationale behind making it not just teachers, but also all employees?
Again, it's been our practice that it's been afforded to all employees across the board. We decided to deviate that slightly with the 12-month because it does specifically say in the law that this is everyone other than those that get annual leave or vacation leave.
Okay, thank you.
And look, I'm just going to say this because I feel like I need to. And I respect everyone's opinion here at the table. But we also need to be aware that these teachers are professionals. I don't think it's the point of those that are taking the days. I think what we need to be cautioned about is what are we doing about those teachers who are continuously going over? What are we doing there? Because I do know a lot of our staff use FMLA as well when they have ran out of days every year and they go to that. So I don't think it's so much of saying we're not going to give you those 4 days. I think what we need to look at is what are we doing to those habitual people that are continuously missing? And I know Dr. Ortling spoke to administrators about attendance. I'm very aware of it. I heard it. I saw it. I know there's conversations. But I want to caution all of us that these teachers are professionals. And if they're given those 4 days, I do believe the majority of them are going to use them in the manner that needs to be done. I truly believe there are outliners that are abusing it, and those are the ones that we need to address.
Okay, I'm going to wrap this up.
Okay.
Mr.
Thank you.
Smith, if you would make a motion to table this item.
I can't make a motion in here.
Yes, you can. You're a committee member. You are a committee member of this committee.
The item is on the agenda for the board meeting. I'd have to make that motion at a duly.
The meeting is more than 24 hours in advance, so because it's 48 hours, we could, if this committee so chooses to remove that agenda item, then we have time to do so. But it would have to be a committee decision.
But the board could ask for.
The board could ask on Wednesday night,
The bo-
but if this committee, you, Ms. Weber, and myself, moves and it's approved to remove this item from the agenda pending.
We could do that, but I could not move to table it. I could move to make a motion to remove the item from the agenda to allow the superintendent to seek an attorney general's opinion.
Is
Okay.
that a motion?
That's a motion.
Is there a second?
A second.
There's a motion and a
I don't mind
second.
I
And
don't mind us getting.
And if I can request a point of
Clarification.
clarification, since this is a request of the board, if I can draft that letter for the board president to sign for it to be coming on behalf of the board president?
Let's see how the vote goes.
Okay. I have a motion and a second from the two committees, and I want to call for a vote. Is all in favor of that motion? This is committee only.
Committee, I thought it was the board.
No.
No committee?
This committee only. Yes, and I assume, I'm
If it was
assuming
first and
that
second,
it's
it's-
going to pass because I have a motion and a second, and that's two people out of the three. So I'm going to take that as approved.
So to be clear, the insurance committee just approved, the personnel and policy committee approved a motion to remove that agenda item for policy first reading 4.07.05 from Wednesday night's board meeting.
And with-
To get further clarification from the Attorney General relative to the interpretation of that act.
And Ms.
Okay.
Gales is going to author a letter to the Attorney General or whoever it is to
We
ask
don't
for
need to get,
opinion?
we don't need to get into that part of it, just make the
Well,
motion.
Okay.
Remand it back.
Okay, anyway,
Can I make just one quick, and please just go do your research on this. It is 2026 legislative session, HB 196, which was Act 625. Just one point of clarification is it went from 2 days to 4 days per the digest here, okay? And it's also in the act. No, we had 3, but in here it said 2. Don't know why. I don't know the history of it, but I just want to point that out.
And another point, I mean, the vote has been made, but another point is regardless of what the Attorney General or whomever we end up sending this letter or whatever it is that we're sending them to, it will not change the line item in our budget.
well, I don't know. That was the question that I asked Mr. Truding, how much this would cost us.
Right, but we have a, but
And we
there's,
don't have that information yet.
no, but there's not, you have X amount of teachers, each one of those teachers gets allotted 7 days. That's a number. Whether they take them or not, it's already in the budget. So regardless of what our request happens to be, it's not going to change anything in our line item. It's going to be the same number.
Okay, next item, G, revisions to board policy 4.06.13, retirements for first reading.
Good afternoon again. So the policy that is before you was potential revisions to the retiree policy for insurance. I just want to state that we do recognize that there are some issues that need to be corrected with this policy, and there are some legislative changes that have occurred this year that are in the Louisiana Division of Administration for the Title 42:851. Our plan was to do this policy revision as an overhaul and bring it in October during the board retreat to discuss changing the entire policy to address all of those issues. What we were bringing before the board this month is just to take out the comparisons to the base plan so that the board can consider possibly assessing rates to Medicare Advantage retirees and their spouses so that we can have sufficient time to notify those retirees so that they can expect that there's going to be changes that's coming because they have not paid those rates in a few years. However, if it is the board's pleasure that we do not want to take that route and you want to wait till October when everything changes, we can do that as well. But I just wanted to give that update because there had been some questions about some of the legislative changes that occurred.
And you did not change that, those 4 segments that we would assess how much the spouses would have to pay for their coverage.
October is what we mentioned just now, to reevaluate all of them.
Okay,
Because to just change that, there's several other sections that we would have to change for that and for the timing.
would it not be less confusing to do everything in October?
The reasons why we wanted to do part of it now so that we can give notices to our retirees that a rate change is coming without any board action or any movement towards board action. We can't officially tell them anything in writing that that rates will be coming. So we need some type of board action for that to happen. And that's why we requested to do those minor changes to the policy now, because right now the communications with the retirees is still struggling to get electronic due to the age range, and it's snail mail. So we wanted to give them the opportunity for us to get that out and for them to be able to ask questions. But if it's the board's pleasure and you want us to do everything at one time, we can do that. It'll just be condensed communications with the retirees.
Can you mention that this was covered in the committee last week, please?
Yes, and this was also covered at the Risk Management and Insurance Committee on Thursday.
I like that we're doing this because I think you said it perfectly, because of the age range. We do have to send some things out by mail, and I think this gives you the opportunity to make sure everyone knows this is going to be happening, so when it happens in October, we can go with that. But I do think we need to have something in our policy about that.
Okay, Mr. Smith? You okay with it? All right, any other questions on this item or discussion? If not, we move to our last item, revisions to 4.06.15, use of pronouns and given names, first reading.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So basically, a law was passed a few years ago, 172125, that addressed this issue in an education setting. So 17 is the education section of the revised statute. This law is 23333. So 23 section is labor and workers' comp. So basically, a lot of this language is already in place for us because of the previous law that was passed, 172125. So essentially, you can see the added language. The biggest takeaway I see is section 5. Basically, if someone's okay with a pronoun, it's fine. You can't say, we can't force somebody not to say it. But it has to be an agreement between two people. So basically, you can't force someone to say a pronoun or, sir, ma'am, that is not aligned with their biological sex. However, if someone is okay with calling somebody that has changed their has gone through a sex change, if it's okay with them, then there's nothing to say that we can't allow that. Essentially, what is the big changes to those. But this law, the most recent law, again, was passed to apply to governmental entities, other employment outside of education, where this education law was already passed, in part, excuse me.
Any questions? If not, this item will be on the agenda Wednesday night. And if there's no objection, the Personnel and Policy Committee is adjourned.
I second it. A motion to adjourn.
The Finance and Audit Committee meeting is now in session. We have 4 items on the agenda. Item number 1 is the approval of letter of support for the WFM CEO. And I'll ask the superintendent and his staff to review that item.
Thank you, Ms. Smith, and I believe Mr. Neighbors has reached out to board members just in reference to this particular, because it's a little bit different. We haven't done one in a while, so Mr. Neighbors, you want to add any context?
As noted, we did this a few years ago in support of a different organization, but this letter of support also is going to be similarly structured so that a certain company in the St. Rosa area is seeking to expand an exemption zone at the Port of South Louisiana. In exchange for our letter of support, they would have the ability to exempt certain inventory that's on that site, but in exchange for our support, they're agreeing, or they want us to agree, that they will continue to pay that inventory tax that would be applied to that level of inventory. So it's basically a net wash for us in terms of they could elect to exempt it, but they are choosing not to do so in exchange for our letter of support. So this would be a net positive for the district. They have sought support from the main taxing authorities within the parish, president, sheriff, ourselves, the levy district, and the assessor's office. So this would just be a vote to let the board president to sign on our behalf, if you will.
I guess I have one question with regard to this letter of support. Do we have anyone from this company will be at the meeting or is in present here tonight?
Not present here tonight, Mrs. Smith, but we could certainly, if you'd like to have them here Wednesday.
I guess the concern that I have with regard to this item is the last letter of support that the board gave with respect to an expansion in the St. Rose area. It was for expansion that dealt with an ammonia plant and what have you. And following that, there was a lot of controversy with regard to that, even though the company had done a lot of pre-work. in the community to try to get support for them. And right now, I am not privy to any work that have been done to get opinions and so forth from the community with regard to this project. And I'd like to be able to ask them what they're doing in terms of pre-work and so forth, and what what safeguards and all that sort of thing that they would have in place so that our community would be aware of this coming and what impacts it might have in the community. Not only did that last thing stimulate a lot of controversy in the St. Rose area, but across the parish, there were organizations and so forth that really had concerns about that expansion. And I guess maybe it taught me to not be so, anxious in terms of the industrial growth, because we have to weigh that with community desires and so forth. And while St. Rose and St. Charles Parish in particular benefit considerably economically from a lot of industrial, it's also moving a lot of our people out, because the footprint of these companies are getting larger, and we have examples of total communities. The Norco community has been tremendously impacted. The St. Rose community have been impacted. The Muntz community, and so forth. So I'd just like to hear from them.
So I don't know if you'll, the conversations, but does everybody know what Randa does?
They make neckties.
So they're not industrial. They don't manufacture, all right? They make numerous products, ties, scarves, belts. I think they are the company that provides the Hager and some of the other brands. They've been existing, I don't know how many years. I don't know that number, but they have to do a renewal of these things. So it's not a manufacturing piece.
No,
And they're in the St. James Business Park too, by the way,
Right.
with all Riverlands and all the others.
I do understand that, but if they were at a meeting that was being televised across the parish, it would be advertised that they would be here. The public would have an opportunity to come and speak on this item. If we approve this without going through that kind of process that I'm requesting, then even though, this may not pose any danger to the community, I think that, what I'm saying here and what I'm asking here is that we just be a little bit more, I hear you talking a lot about transparency, and I just want us to be a little more transparent.
So administration will reach out to members of Randa Logistics to attend Wednesday night's board meeting, and/or we'll also get in contact with Patrick Beard, the Economic Development Coordinator for the parish. If so, we can't get them. And then just to wrap this portion up, the federal trade zone allows opportunities for exemption of ad valorem taxes. In this case, they're actually requesting not to take advantage of that. So there are obviously other advantages to being a federal trade zone. In this particular case, as it pertains to St. Charles Parish Public Schools, they're actually saying we will still pay the ad valorem taxes. But to your point, we will reach out to Randa personnel relative to attending Wednesday night's meeting.
It looks like it might have something to do with tariffs that might be added on as a tax on the inventory. I'm not sure if that's what it is, but that's one of the loopholes in the regulation, that a company would not pay taxes on imports. So if these people make neckties, they might be getting a lot of fabric from Italy, and there might be a heavy tariff on this material that they're looking not to pay.
But that is exactly why I'm requesting that.
I understand that.
Because if we as board members are sitting here saying, well, I really don't
Yeah,
know what they
right.
do, and we approve something, I just want us to be a little bit more diligent and
Knowledgeable. That's a really good suggestion, Mr. Smith, because we don't know what we're giving away.
You know, right,
And
exactly.
if it wasn't something beneficial, they wouldn't have to ask us.
And I haven't seen
What is it?
the request. I haven't seen what they're asking us.
Dr. Ortland, when this takes place, do you have conversations with these companies? I'm not talking about this company in particular, but whenever we have a request like that, do you get notification first? Do you meet with these companies before bringing it to the board?
So in general, Mr. Beard, who's the Economic Development Coordinator for the parish, provides the information to myself, Mr. Neighbors. I'll gather as much information as I can and try to get that information to the board prior to the meeting. There are some times when I do meet with them. I did not particularly meet with Randa. I had, if you recall, had provided some information relative to this federal trade zone, but I did not meet specifically with them. I typically go through Mr. Beard's office to gather the information and also understand where the other taxing bodies are, but that's an appropriate request to have them, here for further questioning, so we'll go about and make that happen for Wednesday. And if they're not able to attend, I'll definitely reach out to Mr. Beard to have him, because he obviously is the one that directly works with them.
And my memory could be failing me, which is very possible, but the company in St. Rose with the pneumonia, didn't they make a presentation to us? I do recall that, okay. All right.
And oftentimes when we talk about, larger ITEPs, we'll have them come in, but, when any consideration of the board, that's an appropriate request for us to have. There are some meetings I do have with individuals. Before I bring that to the board, we always bring it to executive committee as well, the board, for next steps.
I'll reach out accordingly.
All right, that brings us to item B, resolution to approve the millage rate for fiscal '26.
All right. As required by state statute, the school board is required to adopt their amount of annual levies for the millage rates for this next year. As you can see via the attached documentation, there are proposed rates, which would basically, as of right now, leaving all of our assessed millages and levies at the exact same rate it was for the fiscal year '25. At this point, we just need to make sure that we move certain resolutions and affidavits forward at the part of the board meeting. And if there's any other discussion, this is obviously time for that type of discussion.
And just as a reminder, relative to the budgeting for this particular fiscal year and the interim budget that was presented, in June and July, we did account for the RAN as well as the sales tax bonds of $65 million. Obviously, to cover our debt, that projected debt from that standpoint, it was not, if you recall, based on the discussions that were taking place at the time in regards to our millage renewals and the elections, we did not put that as a projection to increase rates. Also keep in mind that the millage renewal, one passed, one did not. So we do plan, obviously, through further discussion, to determine when an appropriate date is, more than likely the spring of 2027, to go back out for that 4.18 mils. So just keep that obviously in mind as part of the consideration for increasing in a millage, increasing or keeping the same, whatever it may be. If it does not pass in the spring, which we have, hopefully it will, but if not, we still have enough variability within the current millage that was recently passed to cover that the difference of 4.18 to bring back up to the max.
Question. Mr. Davis, how much could we increase the millage from where we are now to
The maximum.
the maximum?
Yes, sir. The maximum for the primary millage, which is the operations and maintenance tax, has a capacity of about 6.6 mils.
6.6 mils.
Sir.
And
For this first year.
The millage election that failed was 3.9?
4.92.
4.92. So we could cover that 4.92 by increasing the millage.
That is in the possibility, yes, sir.
But we're still levying, so that didn't, the fact that millage changed, just for clarification, didn't change this year.
No.
Didn't change the collections this year. That would take effect what year?
27.
Next year.
Next year.
Election of the 27.
Before we could have another election.
I'm talking about the 4.92 though.
That does not expire till December of 27. So this first year,
it
we'd
doesn't
still
come
collect.
until 28, technically.
Okay. But two things. One is what I just said. We could cover the millage that failed.
Yes, sir.
And also, how much revenue would 6.6 mills generate?
Between 17 and 18 million dollars.
Okay, 17 to 18 million dollars that we could, we didn't factor this in when we were trying to solve our financial crisis. I don't.
It was discussed. It was discussed.
Did we?
The board had discussed it in parts, if you recall, during the process of the revised budget to the interim budget. It was discussed, Mr. Ellis, but not necessarily laid out such as what we typically do for the millage renewal piece like it is now, but it was certainly brought up. But based on the timing of where we were as a school system in preparation for the operation and maintenance millage renewal as well as the construction improvement, we did not make that a focal point of the discussion.
Okay, but we could have.
Yes, sir.
The six, you might want to describe it. You mentioned 6 mils,
6.6.
And where are you getting that from?
So I was
Talking about the 33, going from 33.92 to the maximum.
The maximum right now, according to the assessor's website, is 40.55, which is the previous authorized maximum. That is the gap that we have for this next this next tax roll year. After that year, that's when the election that just took place that was passed resets that maximum to 39. So going forward, after this first tax roll, our maximum available would be not 6.63, as I mentioned to Mr. Alexander, but actually closer to 5.08, which would be the new maximum levy that we would be allowed to collect going forward. So this would be the 1 year of opportunity to go above that elected rate.
And what's your recommendation?
At this time, all the budgets were basically set and fixed in the interim at leaving everything alone.
And in part, our recommendation is based on where our current position is as a school system, what our current interim budget is projecting moving forward, as well as the opportunity to go back out for this construction and improvement millage in the early spring and to not potentially jeopardize that motion to be able to pull back that millage rate.
What is the assessor indicated as far as the assessed value of property in the parish? You might want to mention that.
Yes, sir. And just for specifics, this estimation and the numbers that you see here in this estimated revenues do take into account the assessor's change in valuation of about 1%. He went from about 2.56 to about 2.5. So there was a drop that was coming because of the valuation or the anticipated valuation. So our revenues were already projected to change. And so we didn't want to mess with the volatility, if you will, in terms of some of those numbers and what was provided in the interim budget. So the interim budget numbers were based along those estimations. If you remember in our discussions about, the projections and things of that nature, his valuations of that change were accounted for.
I want to make a little bit of a statement here about this as far as it goes with the school board, but also taxpayers. we are taxpayers. We live in this community. We pay taxes where we live. The reason why I am not interested in having a conversation that does the things that we are talking about here is because we need the public to trust us, because they've always trusted us, and I would like them to continue to trust us because I trust us. And I know that we made the best decisions with the information that we had. Moving forward, I have every intention of hopefully going back to the public and saying, we have shown you everything, you have seen everything, this is all there is to see, please continue to trust us. Now, if that decision is different and if that outcome is different, then we can have different conversations. But until that day, I believe that we as a board need to continue reminding everyone that we live here, we pay these taxes, and we deserve the trust that they have always given us. That's my thoughts on this.
Right.
I'll add that, look, I believe, in my opinion, that we should go back out for a 4.92 in the spring. With that said, Ms. Boudreaux basically hit on it just now, in that, I used this line earlier today, that trust is earned over time, not when the crisis occurs. And I think what we saw over the last few months is that the majority of this parish does trust us. We took accountability, provided the information. And so as we move forward to go back out in the spring, I think it'd be very, very difficult if we were to increase any amount between, just any amount up to that 6. I think we're asking for it, and I think you're asking for a lot of people to come out against it. And based on the data I've looked at, I feel like we've got an opportunity. I think, to Ms. Boudreaux's point, we have an opportunity to continue to earn that trust. And I think I could stand on that, and that's another bullet point that Dr. Orland can include in his community advocacy in the springtime, at least, for these members will continue on the board. That's my take on it.
And I echo the same sentiments. I mean, I think that I think we have the ability to recover without the increase, and I certainly don't want the public to have the perception that we're asking them to bail us out of a difficult situation.
I agree.
I think that I agree with that, with the understanding that I believe that this current board put in place processes and procedures and a fiscal plan to put this board on a solid foundation going forward. And any future discussions of where we need to go that go beyond the scope of what we've decided already, I believe is outside of our really purview as a lame duck member of the board. So I would agree with that position, because I think that any other decisions, in addition to what we've already put in place, which is a solid plan, that should be the decision of the new board.
And I want to mention too the piece about business and industry, who contribute a great deal to our taxes, correct? And I feel as though that having those conversations with them, because I know for a fact, and I'm sure Dr. Ortland knows this as well, Shell already announced they're doing a 10% cut across the board. So we need to look at everything that's in place. I agree with Mr. Al was saying, Mr. Suffren, and Mr. Smith as well, that I think we can absorb this so we can see what's going to happen down that road. But I feel like that's a conversation we can have down that road. I think right now more than anything, the public needs to know that they can trust us. And I feel like we need to work very hard in doing that and publicly stating that we're going to make sure we can do everything we can because of the processes that we have now put into place, that you can trust us. I would not feel comfortable at all going back and saying, okay, we're going to roll this forward. That's not something that I'm comfortable with doing. So I'm in agreement with those that have spoken, and we can have that conversation with the new board as they come on in 2027, and we can move forward from there.
One comment I just wanted to make, a point of privilege probably. Mr. Smith, you've always led with humility. You are nothing even close to a lame duck. You proved that tonight already. So thank you though for your foresight and your humility today. But I'm not going to let you call yourself a lame duck. Not on the record.
I brought the shoulder like, okay, I don't know what you're talking about.
No, and you're trying to hold a smile back, but you hit on the other half of it, in that the things that were put in place. Because that again gives our staff, operationally, Dr. Ortling, as, quick hands, by the way, trying to get the fly. The fly got me off track.
Sorry.
But to get those things in place, that he can have something to stand on those things, right? And we're going in with a stronger foundation, to your point, in that. And one quick just point of clarification is, if you look up, and you can Google it, the Louisiana Legislative Auditors Setting Millage Rates document. It's a PDF that come out with every year. They actually updated it last week. The term roll forward, just for clarification here, it only applies in assessment year. So whatever term you want to use if you were to increase, but it's definitely not roll forward unless it's assessment year, just for clarification. Thank you.
Okay. All right, that brings us to the final item. Not final item, but the third item, Louisiana Compliance Questionnaire.
This questionnaire is an annual document that is prepared by the CFO with regards to responding to various state statutes in terms of compliance by the school board's actions with regards to budgets, public meetings, public bids, things of that nature. This document is prepared on behalf of the school board, and this motion in this letter would basically give the superintendent, Mr. Cody, and myself the ability to sign off on that document and presentation to the external auditors. This is an annual exercise that happened for the last few years, and this is just, again, authorizing that everything is in the affirmative.
Okay. Any questions about the compliance questionnaire? If not, we have the final item is item D, accounts payable.
Thank you, Mr. Neighbor.
Mr. Neighbors has, you want to talk about the redesign of the accounts payable?
Sure. There's a few additional documents that we're going to be using going forward. I think I've mentioned to most of you in terms of some of the preface as to what's going on, but there's some additional documentation there in terms of the budget to actual. If you remember in the July meeting, Mr. Cody had asked for some additional information about as we continue to refine our year-end numbers for June of 2026. So there's now two versions in there for you to look at in terms of what was provided originally, and then the second version I refer to as V2. So you can kind of see the changes and the additional accruals that are made that we do as a part of our year-end close process, and you can kind of see where the position lands in a slightly more favorable format compared to where we had anticipated in terms of the budget. No, apologies. So you can see not only the budget to actual for 26 in terms of the June, the original, as well as the revised, but you can also see a tweaked format for the July of 27, the first month of this year's or 26, the first month of this year's operations. I've provided some additional columns and clarity for you to really kind of dig some more details in there so that you can really see an understanding of where we're at in terms of actual expenditures, as what we refer to as encumbrances or purchase orders, commitments. These are items that we have put together, or that the board's departments have put together in terms of contracts or plans to commit various items. A lot of them, as you can see, are in the capital project. So that is a lot of our capital projects plans that are in place through the Physical Plant Services Department. So I didn't want to group those together as we've done historically, because that could paint an unusual picture. Considering if you take a look at those numbers for July, that could show that we spent $30 million, and that's not the case, because 12 of that is committed into future expenditures, not in the current month of July. So I at least wanted to give some more clarity and some more columns for you so you could kind of see where we're at on a fiscal basis. And also kind of giving you a physical split between the year to date, which is to the left-hand side, as well as the month to month, which is on your right-hand side. So again, any additional feedback and transparency, I much appreciate, any sort of additional comments.
Mr. Neighbors, can you also mention the cash flow analysis that you'll now be including with this agenda item?
That was going to be the second half of my speech. The additional documentation is in there with regards to where we landed for the cash flow. I think we've been discussing in the last few months about what the cash flow position of the board is. Obviously, you're well aware of the debt that was recently entered into and was received this last week. So this cash flow really takes a good hardline view in terms of walking through where we ended for fiscal year 26. You can see where we started and the June 1st or July 1st timeframe. You can kind of see the changes. Everything at the top of that document and the bottom of that document where it refers to balances of those accounts is supported by actual bank statements or investment statements. So you can kind of see where the money was spent, what type of operations they were spent, and you can kind of track the ins and outs of our cash flow. And then last but not least, you can kind of see where we landed at the end of June 30 of 26 with some reservations, because we do have some holdbacks for things like our debt service that we have to withhold, as well as our self-insurance that we have to withhold. So there are some small adjustments there, and you can kind of see where we landed in terms of the fiscal picture for the school board. Yes. And last but not least would be, I didn't took that same analysis and applied it for the July of 26 timeframe. So that will be something you will see going forward, so that you'll see that July, August, and you can kind of see the cash position. Obviously, in the month of August, you'll see a fairly large increase because of those bond offerings that we were able to successfully consummate recently.
Any
questions or comments about format?
Any other questions, comments?
Including that was all.
I tried to get it in for the July meeting, but unfortunately, timelines got away from me.
Thank you, Adam. I think the revised document here will provide much-needed information that will assist the board in further understanding the business of finance. Any further questions, Mr. Sufferins? Anything you want to say, Ms. Weber? If not, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. We stand adjourned. Thank you.
We leave, I'd ask everyone to look at the Wednesday agenda as I go through the consent items, because there are several second readings that we did not look at tonight that are on the Wednesday's agenda. So if you'll look at item 4, I'm proposing to consent agenda 4D, as in dog, E, F, G, H, I, K, L, M, and U. That allows for the second readings of the district debt, revenue anticipation note, tax bond and election sales, post-issuance tax compliance, and local property tax, as well as the letter of support, et cetera, to be read. But the consent agenda items, again, D, E, F, G, H, I, K, L, M, and U. Any objections? Nope, okay. And you're welcome.
Second.
P, Q, R, S, T, U, V.
Same thing on there.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.